Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our presentation on the automated and fully integrated workforce scheduling solution for public safety. And that is Workforce TeleStaff. And we only have about 30 minutes before our live Q&A, so we'll jump right in. A little bit about JK Seva. We aim to transform business processes across a variety of industries, such as public safety, healthcare, local government, hospitality, and gaming. JK Seva is recognized as a leader in workforce telestaff consulting services. We have consultants who've worked in a wide range of public safety roles, from police, fire, paramedic, and other city and public safety jobs. And we have expertise in implementations, upgrades, product enhancements, automation rollout, disaster planning, customer reporting, integrations and interfaces, and enhanced training options. And for more information, please visit jkseva.com. And my name is Emily Fisk. I'm the relationship manager here at JK Seva, and I am based out of Chicago. And we have Tim Paraguay. Tim has 15 years of payroll and scheduling experience with TeleStaff. He is a retired lieutenant in the police force with the city of Madison, Wisconsin. And he's earned his TeleStaff expertise with implementations for both fire and police agencies. And another guest speaker today will be James Waring. James has 31 years of fire and EMS experience and has served all ranks from firefighter, paramedic, flight medic, fire lieutenant, up to operations supervisor. He's also a public safety scheduling coordinator. He's been a TeleStaff user since 2003 and the scheduling coordinator while in various departments. And he's down in Florida. And we also have Jeff Colhay. He is a patrol officer who has also held the sworn officer position within his precinct's IT department for the last 10 years. And he's a certified firearms and taser instructor. He's also served on his traffic unit for 3 years. His department has utilized Workforce TeleStaff since 2012, and Jeff has served as the system admin and engineer since implementation. And let's hop right to it, and I will hand this off to James.
Thank you, Emily. Workforce TeleStaff is a unique software, and it provides a fair, more accurate personal scheduling of your employees. It also enables you to use an automated system with rules-based assignment of overtime to quickly or to correctly and disperse overtime in a fair and equal manner. It has an integration communication component, which allows you to contact your employees through a variety of different networks, whether it be phone, email, text. And it's great for an emergency response if you need to do an all-call to call in all additional personnel for whatever the situation may handle. TeleStaff is flexible and powerful to where it can give you a variety of automation enhancements and the flexibility to custom build your automation to call for overtime, disperse special events. Everything is based on a rules-based sorting method. These methods are in coordination with your policies and procedures and your CBAs. We can make the system as automated as you desire, from anything from completely hands-off to still have user control to set off the phone calls when needed. Another component that TeleStaff is very handy and to help save you time and hours of work is the auction format or the bidding modules. The bidding modules allows the agencies to fairly distribute vacation time, whether it be weeks at a time, days. It allows you to bid out your vacations in the future. For example, you would take like this end of this year, you would hold your vacation auction for the year 2022. This will allow not only the employees to get the bids that they want or the vacation days, they'll know exactly what days they have their vacations planned, so that they can go ahead and start making plans with their family, put down deposits or whatever they need to do for their vacations. You can also use the bidding format for position biddings, to where you can bid on certain positions within the department. So say if someone wants to go from District 1 to District 2 or from North Side to East Side and there's a slot open, you can put a bid out for it and people can bid for their respective agencies or respective positions. Tim, if you can give us an example of how the auction and bidding worked in TeleStaff.
Yes, thanks, James. Yeah, I did help a department that was on pen and paper prior to moving into TeleStaff. And as you all know, part of the two most common areas that officers have a lot of angst about is their yearly vacation and their yearly assignment, if you do it on a yearly basis. Some departments do it on biannual, but it also creates a lot of work on command staff. And so in this one agency, they had one captain or a lieutenant, a sergeant, and 3 officers, all working 3 to 5 days per year just on the vacation auction. That's not even counting the assignment auction. So what they would do is they would have a room, and then people would come in one at a time or call in, and it would take them a week. A lot of mistakes were made. And it was because it's a very emotional, it means a lot to officers. There was a crowd outside just waiting for their turn. It was pretty chaotic. So now they went to TeleStaff and they complete the entire vacation auction within 3 hours with just the TeleStaff administrator monitoring it. And a TeleStaff administrator doesn't have to be of rank. It could be a police officer, it can be a corporal, it could be a civilian. All they're doing is ensuring that the actual auction is working. And the officers seem to like it because it was much more transparent, and they were able to see where people were going before them and where people were going after them. And they weren't calling into the department, calling the OIC or the command room to make their assignment. And when we talk about transparency, one of the areas where TeleStaff is really good about transparencies is their reports. And I think, Jeff, you would like to talk about some reports, wouldn't you?
Yes, Tim. One of the most powerful aspects of TeleStaff is the fact that most organizations transitioning to a tool like TeleStaff are coming from a pencil and paper type process. Their scheduling, which would include, regular duty, time off, sick time, etc., is all handled on pencil and paper. You transition to a tool like TeleStaff, and you have an immediate ability to see accountability for everything that happens. The system gives you an immediate audit trail of transactions such as who gave out overtime, how did certain assignments, get applied to certain personnel, who deployed a group of officers to this training. That provides a lot of power to upper administration to have a grasp of their accountability. Many organizations have asked for guidance on how to run reports, for example, for sick time abuse. How many times in the past year has a certain employee called out sick? Most organizations had a single employee that, a civilian employee that handled payroll. Now, payroll can be handled right out of TeleStaff. And then there's customizable reports. Many organizations that I've worked with have, said, I want to know this, this, and this. And, the fact that all of this is in a database makes it accessible. Whereas in the past, you'd be pulling from, a pile of books that were, again, pen and paper. So the accountability is just comes from the fact that all your information is now in a central source and is very, very accessible. Tim, I think you had an example of this also, right?
Yes, I was dealing with one department, and as you know, city councils they're throughout the nation right now. They're monitoring public safety, particularly police, and they're not just accepting that we have increased in overtime. They really want detailed reports of where that overtime is going. And the good thing about the report system in TeleStaff is everything you put in it is easily something you can drag right out of it. And so in this particular case, they were having a lot of court overtime, and their example, that court overtime was mostly being generated for the people in the DA's office not giving proper notice of when the court was canceled, and then they would get a minimum call that they'd have to pay their officers. So they were able to track how many of these calls were actually not even the police fault. It was generating outside of the police department, and it was a substantial money, and better practices in the DA's office was a result of that report that they pulled out of TeleStaff. So now we're going to be talking about scheduling and special event scheduling. And TeleStaff was originally built for public safety, and it was at that time, it was basically a really robust scheduling system. It had rules. It's done a lot better in rules and fairness, but it was basic. Their basic bread and butter was scheduling. To this day, scheduling is very important, both for the administration and for officers. And now officers are able to see their schedules while at home on their phones. They don't have to call up. There's not this anxiety about when they're working, if they got something approved, if they didn't get a vacation approved. And it saved time because they don't even call in to take time off. They have the numbers right there on their phone to show them whether or not they can get off in the first place. So scheduling is still very important. It's transparent, it's kind of robust. But for administrative, one of the problems that has been plaguing departments for a long time is their special events. And TeleStaff has a really good, easy to use special event that you can throw right in the middle of a workday. You can say, oh, we didn't expect this to happen. It could be a riot situation, it could be a pre-planned, let's say a parade going downtown. It could be an off-duty job. Let's say someone is going to work an off-duty concert, extra duty as well. All of these are outside of the normal work schedule, and it usually required a lot of work. There was a lot of manipulation about who could get this overtime. And with TeleStaff, it's very easy to throw together a ad hoc event. Like I said, all of a sudden, maybe a football team won and now they're celebrating in the street and we have to call in officers. It's very easy to do. You can have it attached with rules so that you don't have to set everything up and then worry about who's going to be called at what time. All of this is already thrown into TeleStaff. And if you could go to the next slide, I'll give you an example. The next slide is going to show you an example of a day-to-day scheduling. And this is just one department. You can have the scheduling look completely the way you like it to look. But in this particular one, you can see that it's grayed out, their names, so you don't see their actual names. But their community response teams, they'll have the sergeant, the 3 officers, the FBI task force, Kaiser detail, etc. And then it will show the exact hours. If someone was on overtime, it would show that. You can have different views for different ranks and users. So for instance, this one is for, okay, everybody just needs to see who's working. But you can have one that just for a supervisor will show everything. It could show who's on a sick leave, which you wouldn't want to show to everybody else. It will show who's on overtime. It's going to show who's on administrative leave, who's on workers' comp. So the good thing about the scheduling is it is really customizable, and then it gets even further customizable when you embed it with a custom report such as BIRT. Now, if you go to the next slide, what I did is just really quickly, and this literally took me 15 seconds. I just said, oh, there's a parade downtown. We need one sergeant, 3 police officers. It's in red now, and that red is basically indicating to the system that it needs to be filled. and it's based on rules. So the rules are pre-planned. You don't have to, while you're doing this, actually deploy the rules. They're already built in there. So now all I did is throw a sergeant, 3 police officers. They now know they can sign up for this. If that is your process, they can sign up for it, and it could be automated, and it will just spit out who that sergeant's going to be and who the 3 officers are. And it literally took 15 seconds to do. And why officers like this? Like I said, it was very transparent, and they are no longer worrying about calling in, seeing where they're working the next week, seeing if they're vacation, and the overtime. This is an overtime event that is prayed downtown. The biggest complaint that a lot of departments will have is overtime is unfair. It's distributed in a certain time of the day. It's not, even though there's rules, they're not being followed. Well, in TeleStaff, it really makes you follow the complete rules. So with that, I think we move on to the next slide with Jeff.
Thanks, Tim. And just to expand on what you just touched on in regards to rules and how things get filled with special events, you have to understand, people in our field understand that our contracts determine a lot of the assignments, a lot of what our personnel gets. So it's actual legal contract language that determines, for example, how overtime gets given out. It's legal contract language that determines who gets how vacation time assigned to them. For example, what James said in the bidding part. Everything in regards to overtime, annual bidding, assignments, it comes from a legal contract, and the repercussions of those things not being right can be grievances, which in turn is a financial hit to your police department and ultimately your town. So TeleStaff is very, very good at allowing us to write the parts of our contract that determine who goes where and who gets what through the rules that TeleStaff can interpret. So what does this do for us? It eliminates human error. Overtime slot comes up and makes an error. Who they offered it to first. TeleStaff doesn't make that error. As long as the rules are right, TeleStaff's going to be right. The right person's going to get offered. And transitioning from what I mentioned earlier in regards to, things that are done on paper and pencil, there's an audit trail here. If somebody got a phone call by the computer, they can't say I wasn't contacted, because there's going to be an audit trail. So, and another great thing that TeleStaff can do is it can get as deep or not as deep as you want it to. If you want to have some control, you want your supervisors to have some control of overtime hiring. They don't just want to press a button and have the computer generate the list and then start the phone calls. It can do that. Or supervisor can say, all right, I need overtime in this spot. They can hit a button. It gives them a list. They can make the phone calls themselves. So ultimately, TeleStaff does a great job at letting us transition from the old way of doing things on pencil and paper, and very, very accurately taking our contract language and processing it into what is ultimately handled as a computer system. Okay, so one of the main ways that the TeleStaff presents its data is through lists. And those lists are the product of the rules. What does that mean for a user of TeleStaff? It means that we will be in compliance with our collective bargaining agreements, our contracts, our MOUs that we're all subject to. There's less ability for these things to be interpreted incorrectly through human error or intentionally, which ultimately results in less grievances from your employees. Everybody's going to be subject to the same system. This is going to ensure a fair distribution of overtime being given out, overtime for special events. People want it or maybe don't want it, and vacation time. And now we are going to transition into how this will provide a return on investment for your organization. From the beginning, I think what James started when he started talking about the bidding and auction module, right through the entire life cycle of the tool. As I've said multiple times in the past, we're transitioning from a paper and pencil, pen type system. It's inefficient, subject to error, subject to interpretation, no ability to audit. When you transition to the TeleStaff system, you're going to say, as James mentioned earlier, you're going to save money just on the bidding and auditing process. You're going to have minimal maintenance, less rework. Big part of it is data integrity, though. You can analyze your organization's efficiency, how overtime is being given out. I worked with one organization that in their first year estimates they saved 1/3 of their overtime costs from the previous year. Why do they think they saved that money? Human error and proper distribution of manpower, both eliminated. So you're going to see a huge return on your investment as you transition to a system like TeleStaff. Tim, do you have anything else you want to add before we turn it over to Emily?
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to add that I forgot to add at the scheduling part of it is that, as you can see with the rules and the saving of the money and the bidding, TeleStaff is a very robust system, and we didn't even talk about work codes and how work codes pay people. And the good thing about TeleStaff is it can be fully automated and integrated with existing payroll systems and CAD systems. So you can have TeleStaff populate your CAD, not only saving you time, but dispatch time. And sometimes in current practices, officers or supervisors have to walk over their schedule to dispatch, and then they have to incorporate it in and redo the whole thing just to put it in the CAD. TeleStaff can be fully integrated with CAD and payroll systems.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, James and Tim. And we'll wrap this up real quick because we'll be going right into our live Q&A. But, we have options. You can do it yourself. It can get a little bit tricky. We can do it with you. We can just walk alongside of you and you can see the entire process. And we'll be able to show you how to do the same task again in the future if you have any questions, if it comes up again. Or we can do it for you. Again, lots of options. And if you have any questions about that, please contact us at contact@jkseva.com. Send us an email. But thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be having the live Q&A in just a second. If you are also interested in a TeleStaff demo or need any help with your TeleStaff, maybe you already have it, please send us an email at salesteam@jkseva.com. We'll be right with you. And thank you again so much for joining. We will be heading into the live Q&A.